The desert air was still but heavy, as if the earth itself was holding its breath. The sun had long disappeared behind the sand dunes, and the stars above shimmered in eerie silence. In the ancient city of Kufa, known for its knowledge and its blood-soaked history, a strange unease crept through the night. The call to prayer had passed, but the streets remained uncharacteristically empty. Only a handful of flickering lamps lit the crumbling alleyways, and in one forgotten corner of the old city, a man sat hunched over ancient scrolls, his trembling fingers tracing verses that had not been read aloud in generations. His name was Safwan, son of an old scribe from Najaf, his family long known for guarding rare texts believed to hold divine secrets hidden from the masses. Tonight his eyes were red, his breath shallow, and his lips kept repeating a verse over and over, as if he were trying to memorize it, or perhaps control it. The scroll in his lap was brittle, its ink faded by time and tears, but what it said could not be mistaken. It spoke of the one-eyed deceiver, of the son of false hope, and of the first to fall. Safwan had read many prophecies before, even some so dangerous his own father had warned him never to speak of them, but nothing had shaken him like this. It wasn't just a prediction. It was a location, a date, a description, and a name. The scroll claimed that the first to fall to Dajjal would not be an ordinary man or a weak believer. He would be a man praised by nations, a man who thought himself righteous, a man who had memorized the Quran but had never understood its fire. And the scroll gave him a name one still whispered in mosques and lectures with reverence. Safwan whispered it to himself again and again, unable to comprehend the weight of it. Then he did something strange. He burned the scroll, every page, every line, as if the knowledge it carried was too poisonous to let breathe in this world. As the flame swallowed the paper, Safwan stood and turned to leave the room, but froze. A soft knock echoed against his wooden door, not the loud, urgent kind, but a soft, patient one, as though the visitor knew he would open it sooner or later. His heart began to race. He hadn't told anyone about the scroll, not even his students, not even his family. And yet someone was here. He opened the door, slowly, his body shaking. A figure in dark robes stood in the alley, barely lit by the lamp. The stranger's face was hidden, but his voice was calm. "You have read what was never meant to be read," the figure said. "I have burned it," Safwan replied. "It's gone." "But not from your heart," the man said, "and not from the sky. It has already been seen." Safwan's mouth went dry. "Who are you?" The figure raised his head, and for a moment Safwan could see his eyes glowing like embers. "I am no one to fear, but you must come with me now. The first sign is about to appear, and if you truly believe, then you will witness it with your own eyes." Despite the chill in his blood, Safwan followed. The streets of Kufa passed behind them, like shadows fleeing from light, and the stranger led into a courtyard outside a forgotten mosque. There a small group had gathered, all in silence, all eyes on the night sky. A child, maybe 7 years old, stood in the center, his hands raised to the heavens, and his eyes wide open, as if he were watching something no one else could. The stranger motioned for Safwan to stand behind the boy. Then the boy spoke without moving his lips. "He is awake." The words came not as sound, but as a wind that passed through Safwan's bones. He fell to his knees, gripping his chest. The others began to chant verses as if trying to shield themselves, but the boy turned and looked directly at him. "You read his name, the boy said. What name? Safwan whispered, though he already knew. You know, the crowd began to panic. One of the men fell unconscious. Another ran. But the stranger remained calm and raised his hand. The boy fell silent again and turned back to the stars. He is not here yet, the stranger said, but the path is open. Dajjal does not come like a beast, he comes like a whisper. And he always begins with the one who believes he cannot fall. Safwan stood slowly, his legs weak. The scroll said he would rise in the east. In a place of learning it did. The stranger nodded. And the man who will fall first is already being praised. There where the stranger looked him in the eye, Jerusalem. But not the Jerusalem of the world, the Jerusalem of minds. A place where men think they have found the truth, but they have buried it under pride. Safwan understood. He had heard rumors of a man teaching strange interpretations, twisting meanings, while claiming divine authority. A scholar of great fame whose speeches filled halls and social feeds alike. A man whose heart seemed pure, but whose eyes burned with the desire to be followed, not to follow. The child suddenly collapsed to the ground unconscious, and the crowd rushed to him. The stranger did not move. Instead he turned to Safwan. You must warn him. He will not listen. Then warn the people. They will mock me. Then prepare yourself for what to be tested by him. Know by yourself. With that the stranger vanished into the shadows. And Safwan stood alone, sound of chanting, gone the wind howling, as if the city itself had woken up from a long sleep back. At his home, Safwan packed what few belongings he needed. He knew where he had to go. Not to the scholar directly, but to the people who still questioned, still feared, still prayed with trembling hearts. He would find them, and he would tell them not of the man, but of the pattern, because Dajjal did not rise alone. He rose through the hearts of those who craved ease over struggle, who chose symbols over substance. He wrote letters. He sent messages, but most remained unanswered. The fame of the scholar had grown too vast, too untouchable. But one message returned, a reply from an old woman who claimed to have seen the same child years ago in a dream. She told him to come to her city, and there he would find others who had heard the same. Whisper as he left Kufa. He looked back once more, the city now silent, the night colder. He didn't know what he would find. But he knew something had already begun. The sky had changed, and in the silence of the stars, something had stirred. He didn't see the man watching him from the rooftop, eyes locked on his every step, a small device in his hand, glowing red for just a moment before going dark again. Wind had shifted, and the desert night now carried with it the scent of coming storms. Not of rain, but of something deeper, more ancient, something Safwan could feel on his skin like static. Before lightning touches the earth, his camel trotted slowly along the dusty road, leading him out of Kufa and toward the city. The old woman had named a place once known for its devotion, now drowned in politics and false scholarship. Woman had written only one line in her reply to him, "Come before the shadow becomes flesh." It was strange, poetic, even, but Safwan understood what she meant. He had seen the child's eyes that night in the courtyard. He had felt the breath of something unseen brush his soul, and ever since then the world had looked different to him as he rode into the outskirts of the city. He noticed how loud the call to prayer sounded, yet how few hearts seemed to answer it. Men argued outside tea-houses. Women walked past digital screens flashing religious slogans, while inside those same buildings Interest-based loans were being offered through sleek mobile apps. The outer layer of piety had become a business, the inner core long abandoned. He stopped near a modest home with a green door cracked and faded with time, and knocked softly. An old woman opened the door, her back hunched, but her eyes alert. She studied him without speaking, then slowly stepped aside to let him in. "You saw the boy," she said, not as a question, but as confirmation. "Yes," he replied, "and someone else too." She nodded and motioned toward a low table where bread, dates, and water were already laid out. "You're not the first one to come." Looking, she whispered, "Some came in search of answers, most left in fear. You stayed." He ate in silence, then finally asked what he had come to know. "What did you see in your dream?" The woman sighed and leaned back against the wall, closing her eyes. "There was a desert, but no sun. There was a gathering of voices, but no mouths. They all said the same thing, over and over. He is truth, and yet he is false. He is light, but casts no shadow." Safwan leaned forward, a chill running down his back. "That's what the scroll said." She opened her eyes slowly and looked at him deeply. "Then it has begun. You must meet the others. They know more than I do, other scholars, men of principle and silence. They are not on stage, not on screen, but in the hidden places of the world, the ones who still fear God." More than applause, she handed him a slip of paper with names, cities, dates. "This is all I have from them," she said, "but be careful. Some of them may already have been approached by who by the man you fear, the one you call first victim, but who may already be something else." Safwan left her home that night and took the first bus toward Qom, a city known for its seminaries, but also its conflicts. He traveled silently, wrapped in a black cloak, his face covered not out of fear, but out of necessity. On the bus a young man sat beside him, headphones and eyes glued to his screen. Safwan noticed the video playing. It was the scholar, the one mentioned in the scroll, preaching powerfully, quoting verses passionately, his followers in the comments filled with praise, likes, hearts, declarations of loyalty. Safwan felt a mix of sadness and fear, not because the man was evil, but because he didn't seem to know he was lost in Qom. Safwan was directed to a small bookshop in a back alley hidden behind a bakery. He entered and saw an old man arranging books with trembling hands. "You came from Kufa?" the man asked without turning. "Yes." "Then you've seen what most ignore." Safwan nodded. "Scroll is gone, but not forgotten. I remember the name." The man turned now, eyes sharp, hand the pattern. Safwan hesitated, then said, "He is praised, not for truth, but for comfort. He speaks in divine tone, but never weeps in the night. He gathers the youth, but scatters their hearts." The man smiled sadly. "You understand more than most, but we must move quickly." He led Safwan to the basement, a cold stone room, lit by a single lantern, where 4 others sat, men in robes of various colors, their eyes heavy with knowledge and burden. They welcomed Safwan as if expecting him, then spoke with urgency. "We have watched him for months, the first victim, as you call him, but he is not the only one." "Do you mean he is the first public one? But Dajjal works in whispers and systems and admiration. He rises not by destroying, but by imitating one of them." Added, "The greatest trick was not hiding, but pretending to be what we most desire." Safwan asked, "Then what do we do?" They handed him a leather-bound book, worn and fragile inside, are signs not from the scroll, but from lives, from whispers we've heard, from those who walked away from his circle. As Safwan opened the book, he found names, testimonies, hidden warnings from students, former allies, some who had seen strange dreams, others who had heard him speak. Things never recorded, things that felt like light but left them in darkness. He read one entry from a student who claimed the scholar had once whispered, "The truth is whatever enough people believe." Another said his lectures began to change just after a journey he took to a distant private island known only to elites. One name kept appearing, Al-Harith. "What is this?" Safwan asked. "Man no one sees, but who funds everything the scholars travel his production. His books, his fame, we believe he is not the Dajjal, but the door." Suddenly the door upstairs slammed shut. The men froze. One of them pulled out a small knife. Others looked to the stairs. Footsteps echoed above. Then silence. Safwan held his breath. The old man crept up the stairs, then returned moments later. False alarm, only a customer. "But it won't be long before the real ones come. What should I do now?" Safwan asked. "Go to the island, the place where he changed. Find what he found there." "Where is it?" One of the men whispered the name into his ear. A name Safwan had only heard in stories. A place said to be cursed by those who remembered the wars. As he prepared to leave, the men gave him a pouch of gold and a small device that looked like a prayer bead. "If you press this, someone will come for you, but only on." Safwan took it and left. The next morning, his heart heavy with what he had learned on the plain, he looked at the screen before him. Again the scholar appeared, a new video live stream. Thousands watching, millions praising, and in the corner of the video, a man stood near the back, face barely visible, but eyes locked on the camera. Safwan froze. He recognized the glowing embers in those eyes. It was the same man who had knocked on his door in Kufa. The island was not on most maps. It existed in whispers and elite invitations. A place known only among circles that never mixed with commoners. It had no name that Safwan could find in official records, yet pilots knew it, traders feared it, and scholars who had once spoken about it were now either silent or missing. His arrival was unremarkable, dressed like a tourist, with a camera slung across his shoulder, and a backpack filled with nothing but 2 shirts, a worn-out Quran and the leather journal gifted to him in calm. He walked down the airstrip toward the small terminal, where a few bored officials sat smoking behind a counter. "Welcome, sir. Reason for your visit?" "Just photography," he replied, "capturing sacred architecture for research." Official nodded, barely interested, and waved him through outside. The air was thick, the sun hidden behind gray clouds that did not belong to this season, and yet the heat pressed down like a warning. The road into the main town was lined with palm trees that had once stood proudly but now drooped as if ashen. Safwan hired a local guide, a thin man named Umar, with nervous hands and eyes that never looked in the same place twice. "You are not the first one who comes here asking strange questions," he said as they rode together on a rusted motorbike. "What do you mean?" "Few months ago, a man came looking for the scholar, asked about a place with no name, then he vanished. Some say he went diving and never came back. Others say he saw something he should not have." Safwan remained silent. He clutched the small prayer bead in his hand, hidden inside his pocket. What was he looking for? An old library. Umar whispered, "One that said to be underground, beneath the ruins at the southern edge. No one goes there anymore, not after the incident." "What incident?" "They say a child entered and came out blind, screaming the name of someone no one had heard before." "What name?" Al-Harith. Safwan's heart skipped. "I need to go there." Umar pulled over his bike immediately, his face pale. "No, brother, I am sorry, but I will not take you there." "May Allah protect you." but I fear that place then. Show me the way, and I'll go alone no more. Hesitated, then drew a rough map into the dirt with a stick. Go here, but if you hear the birds go silent, do not enter, just turn back. Safwan thanked him and continued. On foot, the map etched in his mind, each step crunching on dry leaves and broken earth, until he saw the structure in the distance. A shattered dome, half buried in sand, covered in moss and silence. He entered through a side passage, the scent of damp stone and time rising like smoke. Every step echoed, every breath magnified. He moved, slowly, light flickering from a lantern in his hand, the stone corridor narrowing. Then he saw it, the entrance to the underground chamber. Carved above it were 3 symbols, the same ones he had seen in the scroll that had burned in his hands the night this journey began. He descended slowly, and the moment his foot touched the floor of the chamber, the sound of birds above vanished. He remembered Umar's warning, but he could not turn back now. The walls were covered in writing, strange mixtures of Arabic, Hebrew, and another language. He could not recognize. The air was heavy, and his ears began to ring. At the center of the room stood a stone tablet upon which was carved a map, a figure, and a circle around its head with the word Dajjal scratched violently over it. What caught his eyes was a line beneath Ith. Shall speak not as a liar, but as one who believes himself true. Safwan's hands trembled. Journal from Qom confirmed the same sentence. Someone else had seen this, had written it, and connected it to the scholar. He turned to leave, but behind him stood a man tall, wearing white, a face too smooth to be real, and eyes that burned like coals. You have seen what most Dini. Safwan's body refused to move. Who are you? Man did not blink. I am the one who whispers not lies, but mirrors what already lives in your heart. You are Al-Harathi. In many names are you the Dajjal. They. Man smiled a smile so calm it made the walls seem to freeze. No, the Dajjal needs no name. He only needs your love, your fear, your desperation for ease. What do you want from me? You came on your own. I did not call you yet. Now that you are here, you must choose truth or comfort. Safwan fell to his knees, the pressure in the room unbearable. Truth will destroy what you love. The comfort will keep you blind. But safe then, I choose truth. The man stepped back, and the floor beneath Safwan cracked, revealing a shallow grave. Inside it lay a journal, bound in black leather, older than anything he had ever seen. You are now its bearer, he said, and walked into the shadows, fading as if made of smoke. Safwan grabbed the journal and ran out, gasping as he broke into the daylight. The birds had returned, and the clouds had cleared slightly. He boarded the next boat back to the mainland, his hands never leaving the journal, his heart pounding with questions. At a small inn in a coastal town, he opened the book. Inside were words written centuries ago in the hand of someone who claimed to have met Dajjal not in person, but in influence. They described movements hidden inside scholarship, emotions turned into tools, faith diluted into popularity. One name returned again and again, the scholar, and it revealed his path from youth to his journey to the island, and how he was offered not knowledge, but narrative. Safwan realized this wasn't about one man. It was about the system that craved him, the audience that shaped him, the void that made room for him. He knew he had to confront him, not with anger, not with slander, but with truth. He flew back, not to Kufa, not to Qom, but directly to a major city, where the scholar was scheduled to speak at a grand hall. As he entered the building, a man in black stepped in front of him. "You are not allowed here. Tell him Safwan is here. Tell him. I know about the island and about the journal. The man looked startled, then disappeared into a hallway. Moments later, he returned. He will see you, but only for 5 minutes in the scholar's private room. The walls were covered in calligraphy, his desk filled with glowing reviews. His eyes calm. You've traveled far, he said. Too far. What do you want to ask? One question, then ask, did you know who he was when you met him on the island? The scholar's face darkened. For the first time a crack appeared in his perfect calm. He showed me myself, he said, not my sins, not my lies, but my dreams, and you believed him. I believed in the version of me he showed me. That's when you lost. No, that's when I began. Safwan stood and placed the journal on the desk. Others will read this and they will see. They didn't move. Then let them choose, he said. I no longer care to convince outside. Safwan walked away, knowing the battle was no longer with the man in the room, but with the millions outside, cheering for something they didn't understand. The city outside pulsed with celebration, the grand hall filled with chanting, the scholar stepping onto the stage with a smile carved from certainty. Lights flashed, voices rose, hands clapped, as if welcoming a savior, not a speaker, in the crowd. Safwan stood quietly, the black journal held close to his chest, a weight heavier than stone. He had no intention of shouting, no desire to argue. Truth did not scream. It revealed itself in silence and reflection, and the unraveling of falsehood from within. As the scholar began his sermon, words flowed like honey, each sentence crafted to please and stir the soul. Yet something had changed even in the crowd's eyes. Their joy seemed thinner, their gaze slightly unsure, like a glass beginning to crack from pressure too long. Ignored. Safwan walked to the back of the hall, where a quiet group of students stood away from the clapping, their eyes not on the stage but on the book. He held one of them, stepped forward. Is that what I think it is? It's older than all of us and more honest than most. The student lowered his voice. They've been waiting for someone like you, not to fight him, but to expose the root. The scholar's voice echoed across the walls, speaking of justice, unity, of a path to heaven, paved with his interpretations. But in the pauses between his words came something strange, murmurs, glances, silence, spreading like a cold fog across the back row. Safwan opened the book and began to read aloud, not to the entire crowd, but just to those near him. A leader will rise who speaks not lies, but speaks only what you want to hear. He will shape belief to match comfort. He will wear truth like a robe, but hollow underneath. The students listened, more gathered around him. As the words continued, he shall be the first to fall, not in death, but in heart, for his fall will be in believing himself beyond falling up front. The scholar paused as if sensing the shift. He looked toward the back of the hall, eyes narrowing, then softening, as if in silent recognition. Safwan did not stop a people who forget to weep, who follow one who never wept, and they will clap for wisdom, but ignore the tremble in their own hands. The murmurs grew louder, and now the scholar's voice rose firm, even defensive. There are those among us who wish to divide, to slander, to twist shadows into shapes. Beware of those who come with old books and new accusations. But it was too late. The atmosphere had changed, even among his loyalists. Their hands had stilled their cheers. Now forced to crack in their certainty, had wooden. Safwan stepped forward, walking slowly through the aisle, holding the book up not as a weapon, but as a mirror. You once told them to seek truth no matter where it came from. Now that it comes, you silence them. The scholar said nothing, The crowd watched frozen, the silence more. Powerful than any verse recited, one voice from the middle of the crowd broke the stillness. Let him speak. Another echoed, let us hear both sides. The scholar raised his hand, a signal to his guards to stand down, then nodded. Unsuspecting opened the book to the final entry. He will speak with beauty, but live with contradiction, and those who follow him will inherit not wisdom, but confusion, until one stands not above him, but beside him, holding not power, but proof. He closed the book and looked up. I do not claim to be better. I too am afraid. I too have been deceived, but I bring not my own light. I only bring what was left behind for all of us. The scholar's shoulders sagged, his eyes dimmed as if seeing something far away. You do not understand what they asked of me, what they offered, the loneliness before the praise, the silence before the stage eye. No, Safwan replied, and that is why I fear for you more than I blame you. There was no applause, no outrage, just silence. And in that silence the truth settled like dust after a long storm. Some stood and left quietly. Some approached Safwan with questions. Others remained unsure, torn between admiration and awakening. The scholar remained on stage, seated, his head bowed, hands trembling, as if holding something that no longer obeyed his will. That night Safwan left the city. He did not stay for interviews. He did not publish the book. Instead, he gave copies to those who had seen the signs, those who still prayed with hearts unburdened by fame. He returned to Kufa not as a hero, but as a student, still questioning, still waiting, still listening. And the child he had seen in the courtyard that night reappeared in a dream. Eyes bright and voice calm. The first has been tested, but the story is not over. Safwan asked then, what comes next? And the child replied, now comes the time where the people must choose. Greatest deception is not in lies, but in comfort, in the version of truth that asks for nothing from us, no sacrifice, no humility, no trembling of the soul. Dajjal's path begins not with war, but with applause, not with blood, but with praise. The first victim is not the weakest, but the one who believes he cannot. Falland, perhaps in every age there is such a man, and perhaps in every age there is someone brave enough to whisper the truth even when no one listens.